Have you ever loved someone and still felt completely alone? Have you ever thought, but if we love each other, why is this so hard? Maybe that's one of the hardest questions in a relationship because we're often taught that love is the answer. Find the right person, fall in love, get married, and everything will work out. But what if I told you something I learned through my own 14-year marriage? Love is important, but sometimes love is not enough. Welcome back to Healing Hearts with Melanie. Growing up, many of us hear stories about love. Two people meet, they fall in love, they overcome obstacles, and they live happily ever after. But nobody really tells us what happens after the happily ever after. Nobody tells us that love still has to learn how to communicate. Love has to learn patience. Love has to learn boundaries. Love has to learn responsibility. Love has to learn how to apologize. Love has to learn how to listen. And sometimes, love has to learn how to care for another person's vulnerability. Because it's easy to love someone when they're happy. It's much harder when they're sick, when they're exhausted, when they're frustrated, when they're hurting, when they aren't able to give you what you want. That's when we discover what kind of love we're actually dealing with. When you're not at your best, I learned something about this during my marriage. There were times when I wasn't feeling well, and what I needed in those moments wasn't someone to tell me to simply be stronger. I needed compassion. I needed someone to understand that being sick isn't a choice. And sometimes, when you're already hurting physically, feeling emotionally misunderstood can hurt even more. There were moments when I felt that my pain was being treated as something I should simply fight through. And I remember thinking, I don't need someone to fight my pain for me. I just need someone to sit beside me while I'm going through it. That's a very different kind of love. Sometimes you don't need someone to fix you. You need someone to say, I'm here. Love is not the same as control. And this is something I've learned over time. Love doesn't mean I know what's best for you. Love doesn't mean you should be stronger. Love doesn't mean you should feel differently. Love doesn't mean if you really loved me, you would. That's not necessarily love. Sometimes that's expectation. Sometimes that's control. Sometimes that's fear. And sometimes it's simply two people who haven't learned how to communicate what they need. When criticism replaces connection, another lesson I learned is that constant criticism can slowly change the way you feel inside a relationship. When you're constantly hearing what's wrong, what you didn't do, what you should have done, what you could have done better, eventually you can start feeling like you're being evaluated instead of loved. And when someone constantly finds fault with you, you may begin to protect yourself. You stop opening up. You stop wanting to talk. You become careful about what you say, and eventually, even intimacy can be affected because emotional closeness and physical closeness are connected. When you don't feel emotionally safe, it's difficult to feel completely open and connected. And that's something I experienced. I didn't lose interest in intimacy because I didn't understand what intimacy was. I lost the desire for closeness because the emotional environment didn't always feel safe or nurturing for me. That's an important distinction. Love needs emotional safety. We don't talk enough about emotional safety, but think about it. Can you tell your partner you're hurting without being criticized? Can you say I need help without feeling guilty? Can you make a mistake without being humiliated? Can you disagree without being punished? Can you say that hurt me without having your feelings dismissed? Can you be vulnerable? Because love should give us a place where we can be human, not perfect, but human. And then there's the scorecard. There's another lesson from my marriage that I want to share. I don't believe love should come with a scorecard. If I help someone I love, I don't want to keep a list. I did this for you. I helped you with that. Remember when I did this? Because when help becomes something you can later use as evidence against someone, it stops feeling like a gift. I learned that I don't like counting what I do for people I love. If I can help you, I want to help you because I care. And I think that's an important question for all of us. Are we loving each other or keeping scores? Because those are very different relationships. Love needs action. So, if love isn't enough, what else do we need? We need respect. We need communication. We need compassion. We need trust. We need emotional safety. We need accountability. We need boundaries. We need the willingness to say, I hurt you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Not, I'm sorry you felt hurt. There's a difference. One takes responsibility, the other can quietly hand the responsibility back to the person who was hurt. And a healthy love learns the difference. What I wish I understood earlier. Looking back at 14 years of marriage, I understand something now that I didn't fully understand then. You can love someone deeply and still be incompatible in important ways. You can want the relationship to work. You can try. You can forgive. You can hope. And still discover that love alone cannot solve everything. That doesn't mean the love was fake. It means love is only one part of a relationship. And sometimes we have to stop asking, do we love each other? And start asking, are we creating a relationship where love can actually thrive? That's the bigger question. Before we finish today, I want you to take a quiet moment. If you're driving, obviously don't close your eyes. But wherever you are, just take a breath and ask yourself, when I'm vulnerable, do I feel cared for in my relationship, or do I feel like I have to be strong? Do I feel emotionally safe enough to express my needs and feelings? Am I giving love freely, or have I started keeping score? And here's one more question I want you to sit with. If love wasn't enough by itself, what would I need to make my relationship healthier? Don't rush the answer. Just think about it. I want you to remember something today. You deserve a love that can hold you when you're strong and when you're not. A love that doesn't only celebrate you when you're doing well, but also has compassion for you when you're struggling. A love that doesn't require you to earn your right to be cared for. And you deserve to be able to say, I'm hurting, without being made to feel like you're weak. Because being vulnerable isn't weakness. Sometimes vulnerability is simply telling the truth about where you are. My 14-year marriage taught me many things. Some lessons were beautiful, some were painful, and some took me years to understand. But I'm grateful that today I can look back and say, I learned. And maybe that's what healing really is. Not pretending that nothing happened. Not pretending that it didn't hurt. But taking what happened and allowing it to teach you something about yourself. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about something we often avoid until it's too late. The things we don't talk about before we say I do. The expectations, the responsibilities, children, money, family, intimacy, boundaries, and all those conversations we think we'll figure out later. Because sometimes we'll figure it out later becomes the problem. This is Healing Hearts with Melanie. Take care of your heart. Be honest with yourself. And remember, love may begin a relationship, but respect, communication, compassion, and safety are what help love survive. I'll see you tomorrow. Listen, heal, grow.